Welcome back to another episode of the Backseat Babes podcast. In this episode, we'll be continuing our discussion of the Broadway musical Death Becomes Her. With a focus on the music, staging, and direction, me and my co-host RJ Miller-Zelinko will share our thoughts on the gayest show in NYC and give our final verdicts of this production. But before we dive into Death Becomes Her, please like, follow, and subscribe to us at Backseat Babes on all social media platforms. Thanks again for listening and enjoy the show. Warning, we will be talking about the musical and the movie and aspects of that. So if you want to go on blind, scroll on and come back to this later. So quick recap. Madeline Ashton and Helen Sharp, frenemies. The definition of frenemies from the 90s. Love to hate each other, hate to love each other, who get a magical potion that makes them live forever. And they are stuck in an never-ending war over a man. Do they survive? Do they get the man? Or do they just become lesbians falling apart? Unfortunately, you got to see the show to get those questions or listen to part one. But there's a lot of exciting aspects in the story, but there's also even more about the music and the stage direction of The Death Becomes Her. So I want to start with the music. This is Broadway. So the music of the show felt very standard Broadway in some ways, and yet it didn't. I don't know how to describe it, and I'm hoping you have some better words for it because you are my musical expert here. What is Death Becomes Her?
I would say standard musical comedy type Broadway. Because you have art imitating art, so because she's playing an actress, and they're kind of like in the Hollywood limelight, you do have things that are a little bit more like big musical theater stage numbers.
For sure.
Don't mind my dog just deciding to dig at the floor all of a sudden.
He's just making his territory.
Honestly, I think there's like must be something under the rug or something, but but yeah, like we spoke on in part one, like for the gays, obviously like a showstopper, over the top satire, like quick costume changes, like all the things that you expect in a musical, like basically in a number. Meanwhile, you don't like the power ballads come, but not in a like emotive type way. They're just like, I mean, Michelle Williams just belting, the opening number, and
for sure
a few thereafter, but a lot of the banterish, like the talk singy, that's super musical terms, musical numbers where they're duetting at each other, or that's kind of like a more conversation based numbers, I think.
For sure.
Even later on in why am I
what song?
Forgetting his name? Ernest. Even in his very funny number, it's still a little bit of we're talking, we're singing, we're talking some more, but it's like a sing-songy. It's all in all, it's not like the most complicated music that you've ever heard, and it's not the hardest music you've ever had to sing. It's just because of the physical and overall comedy, and that's usually the way it is. If you're doing two things, which in this case you're doing comedy and you're singing, you're not going to be doing a ton of like, let's break out into a big dance.
I totally understand what you're doing. Forever Young, I feel like is one of those ballads where they do get to kind of sing at each other, but that one is a little more like they stand there and they sing at each other because they're, alive forever. Was what I'm thinking of, alive forever, and they're just kind of singing at each other about how they're gonna be alive forever and they're gonna be together forever. They're gonna be best friends. And then there's like those dance numbers like For the Gays, like you said, like it's just it's heavy dancing. It's more upbeat, but it's not like super, like you're not just hitting high notes and holding them, you know? A lot of it almost reminds me of what came to mind when you said about the Ernest song was the Not Getting Married Today from Company, where it's just kind of like it's like talking, like there's music going, but you're kind of just like talking, you're kind of saying the words, and like part of the comedy is from the fact of like you're just Ernest is kind of off kilter, off key a little bit, and he's just kind of a he's just kind of a dude, and he's just, you know, so that song kind of represents that. um but there's like so much like variation in the music that you get in the show. I think is kind of what comes to mind is like you're getting some really powerful ballads, but a lot of it is kind of that just like the fresh and funky campy songs that are gonna get stuck in people's head. Like you're gonna be singing these songs for a long time. This kind of is what comes to mind. Do you feel like the music matches the sharp wit of the show? Like, because this is a very witty show. Like, this is a very, they put a lot of energy into the dynamics of the characters, and I think that comes from the film. Like, the Robert Zemeckis film is very witty. There's a lot of banter. And you mentioned some of the songs even having that banter. So do you feel like the music matches that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would feel unnatural if you didn't have that built into it, because that is the dialogue that's really happening. Because really, the music should just be a continuation of the dialogue, but just set to music. So I think the transitions and the over the top, like the music, in a sense, also feels equally over the top.
Yes.
In some points, very dynamic, very like grandiose, especially in those moments where we are talking about the potion and just like the dramatic way that it's incorporated, even when they're not singing, but just woven throughout the show. Like music's important.
For sure. It is so like it's interesting to like be such a fan of the film and to think of it now about the music, because I actually remember we were in our hotel room and I was playing you the theme of the movie, and I said they wove this through a lot of the songs, and like it almost, I can't picture without the music now. I can't picture without the songs, and thinking of Madeline Ashton and Helen Sharp singing a lot of these songs. And so I think there was a beauty to that, because like they really understood like the source material, and then they just like they took that tapestry and they just made it more. They made it something special that you cannot get unless you see the musical.
Well, yeah, and the opening, the overture, like even the level at which they were playing, like it was like so loud that it was like it shook you to your core. And very like I don't think that they were playing even an organ sound. Maybe they were, but it almost sounded like that. Like we were getting like creepy, dramatic, but also like my seat is vibrating. And there's like a level of poppiness to it, so it's not just like you know that you're not about to sit through something like, I don't know, like Oklahoma, right?
Sure.
But you
I hope
still are
not.
getting those standard, like this is a clear cut opening number, like the curtain rises type situation, which a lot of shows you don't even get that anymore. You have pre-show ritual, or you already see the set or whatever it is. So even bringing that back gave it like an old-timey feel, but it still felt very modern.
I don't know if you remember, but I almost was so giddy when they started playing the overture, because it was like, the thing about it is it set the tone for anybody that was there, but anybody who had seen the film, that was so easily recognizable that like I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this movie that I love. I'm seeing this show. I was so enamored by just the first note. As soon as they hit that first note, and it does sound like an organ, and the way it kind of goes, and you're just like, oh, you're just like time warped back into this film, and you're ready. And there's just like that. That to me was one of the most exciting parts of the whole show. Was just like getting that moment of like transporting me back and taking me there. But I do have to talk to you about that curtain, because before we talk about the staging, I feel like that curtain was almost magic in and of itself. It was like on a series of pulleys, correct?
Yeah, yeah, and usually curtains are. I mean, they're on some type of system. That one specifically may have had multiple because of the way in which it operated. It wasn't just like a standard, and we're going up and we're going down. Like it had levels to it, which makes me think it was like a multi. There was like a multi systems in place there. Um, which usually are like literally run by humans. Like,
Sure.
unlike a lot of the lighting and stuff that is now, of course, like computerized and programmed, like most set pieces that are, if they're moving like from the ceiling to the floor, they are being operated by a human being. So I'm always just super impressed with that, because anything can go wrong at any time, and they're very heavy. Like it's not like you're just, oh, I'm just like lifting this piece of paper. Like they are still like all that material, especially for a stage of that size, like it's a workout.
I was gonna say, because that curtain almost had a personality of itself. It was so thick. It was so like it gave luxury, like and it added to the camp. And the way like it would, they could move it, and sometimes it became part of the set where like it would go around a door and it would just flow into it. I was just like, this was such a genius. Like this was like what a way to capture Death Becomes Her. And we have been in this theater before. We saw Sweeney Todd there, and we kind of knew what to expect. And there was just so much, like that curtain was not there last time, because this was like a purple curtain that was made for the show, and it was just such a like I was almost so impressed by the curtain that sometimes I forgot what was happening on the stage. I was just like, wow, what is going on? Like they're like, it's coming down, it's going up, and the fact that that even is possibly all humans is even more impressive, and just like shows to like the art of Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, they used it in so many varieties, which you don't see that too frequently. I think actually that's the only time I've really seen it that way. Like you mentioned, around doors, around actors. Um, it was pretty unique.
What did you think about the sets? Because there was some pretty huge sets moving in and out, and granted, maybe some of it was like screen on the back, and that would be something I'd be interested in, because I wasn't there was sometimes I was trying to figure that out, but there was some huge set pieces going on. What did you think of all that?
Yeah, I think it matched. Nothing felt out of place. Um, which is always super interesting, because when you have a show like this that is moving through so much time, that also means that typically you have twice as many set pieces to be moving, because you're only using that portion of the set for a limited amount of time. And so I'm sure it's a busy backstage traffic area. Um, but yeah, everything but it felt practical.
Sure.
Um, I do see more shows using like the drop down. Like I'm thinking of the pillars, some of the pillars that were used for, I don't know what we call them. Like, are they the undead? Um,
The end more Viola's castle.
yes, yeah, the castle. I think they were maybe one or two pillars that were 3D, like that were real, but the rest were kind of brought down from the ceiling, the flat, kind of like scrim variety type for a couple of the scenes. But that's because they also backstage had to hide this massive staircase that they used for most of the show, because all of that was real. I mean, it was like took up space.
For
And
sure.
yeah, there's only so much room, and something like that. I mean, I guess you could lift it, but you don't want that hanging above people's heads. Um,
No.
so, and that's usually with, depending on the stage of the set, like the stage of the set, the size of the stage. That's where things go. Oftentimes, they're up above, because you have people in the wings, right? When you have an ensemble of, God, they had like 15 people, and
It
then
was
in
huge.
primaries you add another 5 to 8, you've got like almost 30 people, 30 people plus, because then you have the dressers, you have um, hair and makeup back there. Like, they are on set, on stage, the entire performance if anything goes wrong. And so it's limited spacing, so everything's going up in the air in regards to if they can manage to still make it realistic looking, which I think they succeeded with this show.
The thing about the castle specifically was it, I don't know if this is just me, but like it looked like it was almost like a hall of mirrors. Like I don't know if they had a reflective like screen that came down, but there was like everywhere you looked there was just pillars, and it looked like it went on forever, which was a really cool aesthetic for this like never-ending castle, the idea of immortality. Um and what an interesting way to do that. Like there was like a reflective, I'm not making that up, right? There was like a reflectiveness to the back that made it feel like hall of mirrors, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it felt, and I also wasn't sure if it was a almost like a holographic type situation, or if it was a scrim that just was painted very, very well to make it feel like you're, kind of like a trick on the eyes, in regards to it being farther and farther away.
For sure. And then when you're talking about when you talk about the stair set, just to paint a picture for people, there is Madeline Ashton's living room, her mansion, and there's a very big staircase that is very important to the storyline, and they do some pretty cool things with it. But it is, I'd never in my head thought it was going to be that big. Like I knew I had seen pictures of it, I knew that I had seen, but it's a gigantic set that you're right. They can't exactly hide anywhere because it's huge. It's all practical. They're not really hiding much. They're like it's all there. Did you expect it to be that big? 'Cause I was kind of blown away by that.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, at first I was like, wow, that's a lot of stairs for like this size of a house, even, basically. But based on as the plot goes, it made way more sense because of the physicality and the importance to the plot of those. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that tracks.
For sure. For those who don't know, I mean, we already gave a spoiler alert, but extra spoiler alert. Madeline Ashton gets pushed down these stairs, and what was probably one of the coolest bits of technicality in a show that I've ever seen. They I think we figured out that it is probably a stunt double. You do see a cable, but there's a slow mo dropping and tumbling down the stairs as Madeline Ashton's like breaking her neck and twisting her head, which I knew was coming, but like for you, RJ, that had to be pretty surprising.
Yeah, I mean, like, after the first, because really it happens kind of twice, right? Like the first time, or that they're talking about it,
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
and you're like, oh, haha. And then when that whole sequence happens, which it is a sequence that I'm sure is so meticulously choreographed, I can only imagine what taking notes was like for that scene. So props to literally every person that has to do it. Um, but yeah, it's insane. It is, once again, like we've been saying, the campiness of it,
Mm-hmm.
the drama is obviously purposeful. It's obviously over the top. It's like you can't even roll your eyes because it's past eye roll level. It's just like hilariously stupid.
Yes.
And it just keeps going. When you think it's going to stop, you're like, oh, ha ha ha. And then it goes for another 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, like, so the interesting thing about when Act 1 ends and Act 2 begins is like, so she falls down the stairs. They think she's dead. Madeline stands up with her head backwards, basically. And the show cuts and it comes back to them kind of fighting. And they're fighting through there. More things happen. And then, like, I think got to the point where, like, Madeline's head was on the rolling cart. And, like, they used, like, magician tricks of mirrors that I was just like, oh, we have entered a new level of camp. Like, and then you get to the part where Ernest is singing and like puppets come out and like puppets are singing to him. And I was like, there was just like so much like you cannot stop the level of humor here. And I couldn't stop laughing at it. And I think normally I would be like, okay, this is enough. But there was something about how it worked in the show that I could not stop enjoying it. And it could be, again, that relationship I had with it for most of my life. But again, you're right. It was over the top. It was 100% over the top.
Well, yeah, and those, I mean, obviously incredibly impressive, because they're using stunt doubles, like multiple. That also makes me think, obviously, these are ensemble members that are doing the stunts, probably.
For sure.
Just insane physical acting happening, like so much physicality, and obviously like in some portions a level of danger.
For sure.
But very smart. Once again, haven't seen the movie, so I'm not sure how they even do the illusion of all of the things that occur, but I was super impressed with Helen's costuming. I mean, and Madeline's too, with the
Sure.
whole what I'm sure is like a prosthetic.
The twisted neck.
Yeah, but the hole in the dress, that was, and obviously, like, that, yeah, there's some optical illusions there. There's some mirrors, because she is pretty quick to put a cape on, but still very impressive, and just enough that you're like, you can really appreciate it.
Before going to the show, this is one of my sister's favorite films too. And I said, I'm going to see it on Broadway. And we both were like, how are you going to have a hole in her? Like how are we going to do that on stage? And like, that was really cool. The smoke that was pouring out, the mirrors that they used. And there was, like, when you talk about the costumes, not even just those costumes, but there is impressive costumes throughout this entire show. Like the dresses that they've made for these women, the characters are absolutely gorgeous, but like how the humor is also drawn into them, like that one. Or I'm thinking of the way that their dresses are, where Helen has, after they're all fixed up, she still has like these red lines that go down to a hole looking thing in her dress, and Madeline has something that's kind of twisted up here, and like they're still like drawing these allusions to those, the humor that has gone through the show. The costumes were just unreal to me. I know that it probably won't win for costumes, but I think it has to greatly be considered when it comes to the Tonys, because it was just super impressive.
Yeah, and as we know, like, the level and amount of detail work, like, these costumes are custom made for the actor, like, and to think that every little thing that they wear, even if it's for a moment, is being hand sewn, hand put together, with every little jewel and every little gem, particularly for this type of dazzly show. And if one thing falls off, like, you literally have costumers in the backstage, like, ready and waiting, basically, with a sewing kit, in the wings. And so it's just because that's how much attention to detail of course, like that is why you go to Broadway, because that's the level of attention that you're getting, so that there is no missed point in the show.
For sure. When we're looking at the show, for me, this was a win because I love Death Becomes Her. But for somebody who hasn't seen it, do you think that this show has a broader appeal? Like, do you think people who don't love the film already can, like, is this a show for them as well?
Yeah, I think the only danger of it is the fact that is getting people in the door, I think, because you're not sure really what it's going to be, and so once they're in, I think if you like a musical comedy, like you're going to love the show. It is a well done musical comedy.
For sure.
It's just the initial get them in the seat.
Absolutely. So what would you rate the show?
I would give it a solid A.
I'm going to go a step above. I'm going to give it an A plus. There's no way you're telling me that this show is not the greatest show that has ever existed for the 2024-2025 season. No, I'm very specific, very niche. No, but I love the show. Would you go see it again?
I would. Yes, definitely. The entertainment value is 100% there. I think this is one, like, it's also one that like families can go to. I mean, I know that there are some like underlying sexual jokes, but like honestly, not any more than what you would expect at like a Disney production. Like, because
100%.
there's so adult humor that like kids, I mean, for sure teenagers could see it, but I mean younger kids wouldn't even get them. But I say that now I'm thinking to like the half nudity scenes, and I'm like, guess it depends on your parenting style, but still definitely a great night out with friends, a great night with family to go see this show and just laugh and have a good time.
Absolutely. I agree. I think so. You say about like, is this a family show? And as somebody who has seen it when they were 13, yeah, absolutely. You should, this is like for like those like preteens to teenagers, like those like that age bracket. Would I take my 6-year-old to this? No, like this is not a show for like a 6-year-old, but this is definitely for like an older family. And it's just a great night out. And who doesn't want to see Megan Hilty? We still want to see Megan Hilty. I'm going to see Megan Hilty in this role.
Running now through November.
Absolutely. So that concludes our part 2 discussion of Death Becomes Her. Thank you so much for joining us in our box seats. Till next curtain call.